This is called Ezra, for Ezra Pound. Still il miglio a Fabro. With Usura, modern poetry, modern literature wouldn't have existed without him. I remember still being awakened in the middle of the night by someone shouting the news, Ezra Pound is dead, and soon lost cantos turned up among Mussolini's papers. What an amazing life. The man who discovered Hemingway, James Joyce, Robert Frost, and T.S. Eliot, and William Carlos Williams, who helped publish Ulysses and edited The Waste Land and badgered Wallace Stevens for poems. That indefatigable volcano in constant eruption on how to write poetry as a craft, on how to translate for the modern world, on how to be a modern poet, on what and who the classics really were, that gushing fountain of crackpot economics, anti-Semitism and fascism, who knew Provençal and the Divina Commedia by heart, who was a modern Odysseus, spouting the Greek of Homer and the Latin of Ovid and the cadences of Virgil, as well as the Poema del Cid, was gone. The American expatriate who lived and preserved the best of what was truly Europe, living in England, in Paris, and in Italy, caught between two world wars, who wanted to preserve Europe, who wanted to preserve the Constitution, who had seen too many young poets die, and ended up on the wrong side. We remember the 12 years he spent in an insane asylum in Washington, where he was visited by Allen Ginsberg. The 3 months he spent in a gorilla cage in Pisa, then typing the Pisan cantos in the detention center with no books and all the quotes from memory. And oh, what a ruckus there was when they won the Bollingen Prize because he had been charged with treason. Always assuming a different persona. We may never quite know what it's all about. You never quite knew in the cantos who was speaking to you, or who was speaking to whom, about what, in even what language, or even where you were. But you were there for the ride, and what a ride. On a ship sailing home on the sea from Troy with Odysseus, on an island in bed with Circe, hearing the sirens beguiling you on the sea and air and land alive, with gods and men, on the way to Naxos, with panthers and grapevines, when Dionysius took over the ship, fighting the Moors in Spain with the Cid, or in the canals of Venice, transformed into an eerie paradise, or even inside a gorilla cage, who saw the painter and the stonecutter and craftsman building Christian churches, yet going to hell with Usura, who tried to build an earthly paradise and write a modern divine comedy, with a paradise stuck in the middle of the greatest war, whose voice was broadcast over Rome radio and heard by Americans while my father fought in the war, whose life was never one day without controversy. What would he think of his disciple? The one who learned Hebrew and wrote Christian poems and wrote against anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. I know only he wanted to build the city of Diocese, whose terraces are the color of stars. Five. And Redemption of the Tiger is in the 5th edition, about to go into the 6th edition. And that poem will be in the 5th edition. And now I'm going to read one, also from Redemption of the Tiger. This is called Poetry is Not. Poetry is not written, but unleashed. More than a refined glossolalia of the mind. Words reveal the fever scars engaged in paronomastic wars. Nerve brimstone eruption in a monument of time. A second of eternity fuses to solidity. Theology of stars, thermometer of the heart. Stephen's philosophy of jars. Break the thing! And before the crumbling chaos intervenes, transpose the soul to concepts, exploding fires of memory, breaking the world to contradictory shards, resolving chaos back to form, indissoluble, cast in one intellectual lump, fired in the kiln of reality and decomposed to chaos. Poetry is a being born, a thing that has to find a voice. A choice of all eternities needs no logic, but a home, someone to live in, a pair of lips to blow the horn.